Welcome to Remotely Interested, the podcast where we talk remote working, work life in general, and top tips to successfully work from anywhere. Today we'll hear from Melissa Taylor. Based in Manchester, Melissa works as a direct increment investment manager for a British mutual life pensions and investment company, a company which has been operating since the mid-19th century. Melissa, welcome to the Remotely Interested podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mary. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Excellent. We're really pleased to see you today, and thank you for accepting to appear on the podcast. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So let's kick things off straight away with our first question, which is about you and about the kind of work that you do and how remote working first became a feature, or perhaps indeed hybrid working, in the way that you work.
I do direct investments. So that's where clients will come directly to us to pay into whatever scheme they have with us. So it's a lot of maths and keying numbers, and they offer a hybrid model at the moment, which I found is really good for flexibility, and it's given me a lot of opportunity for growth as well. But it first became a feature in my working life about 4.5 years ago when I worked for a small family startup company. So they did a remote working, sometimes it's fully remote, others it was just one day in the office or one day a month, just to keep overhead costs low for them while they were trying to grow. So it was easy for them to just rent out an office every now and then for big projects. That's when it first became a feature.
Okay, excellent. That's really interesting that they saw the importance of keeping overheads low, because it's true that office costs can be very, very expensive for a company. So they took that initiative then to reduce those costs by allowing you to work remotely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it gave them a lot of flexibility as well. If we're doing like additional training and things, we could go on those courses and still check our laptops and things. So that was another good perk for them as well.
Yeah, excellent. And so when you moved, was that hybrid from the beginning, or did it take some time to develop in that way?
So they had been a hybrid company for quite a while, even a few years before COVID. They tried to introduce it just to give their colleagues a better like work-life balance, because they're very much focused on the culture and the people aspect of their business. But when I first joined, you do 2 months of quite intense training, and that has to be fully from the office, which I think was quite important. There's a lot of systems to learn and a lot of people to get to know and different departments to gel with. So I think that was really useful to be fully in person for that. But then after you've been signed off and you've passed your quality assurance on certain things, then they offer you to work hybrid, which is what they've always offered. Like, it's advertised in the job that you can work hybrid, but you do have to be signed off and have a good track record as such to be given the option to work from home.
Okay, great. So part of the culture then, as you say, pre-COVID, which isn't the case for many companies. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, how would you say that remote working is in line with the culture?
I think because they really tried to put people first. It was a lot of people that had gone on maternity leave that didn't want to come back full time, but didn't want to cut down their hours. And I think they're very open to being, adaptable to the culture of what their employees want. I think people that had occupational health who sometimes couldn't come in, but they didn't want to take time off work, but they couldn't physically get to the office. I think they just decided to relook at the business structure and decide, is it better to have the collaboration of everyone being in the office, or is it more important to give people the option? Because there are some really legitimate reasons for people to work from home.
Yes, of course. And we'll talk about those positive aspects in just a second. In terms of your team, then, are most people working hybrid?
Yeah, I think most people do a few days at home. There's only the odd few I can think of on the floor that I work on that just prefer to be in the office full time. And I used to be one of them. But a lot of people do, even if it's just one day from home or 2 days, that pretty much most people there do hybrid for various reasons.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. So, Melissa, you said you were one of the people that preferred to work 100% in the office. So that leads us nicely to our next question. What changed? What are the positive aspects that you realized you could gain by working hybrid?
I think when I gained more confidence in the role and I felt like I was fully trained up and a lot of my questions are being asked, I felt more confident to be on my own at home. I think my concern was that I'd be at home and get stuck with something. But the last thing you get trained on is the phones, speaking to customers directly, obviously. And I found that more comfortable at home because you can sometimes feel quite loud if you're the only one with a phone call on the floor and it's an open plan office.
Yeah.
You feel like people can listen to you. And for my personality, I was a bit like, if I mess up, people are going to hear me say the wrong thing and it'll be embarrassing. But I think when you're at home, the pressure is off. And so personally, I think I actually deliver a better service when I've not got that almost pressure. And I think as well, at the start of the year in January, we had some really bad weather, classic UK, but it
Yeah.
was really icy. They couldn't get the gritters out in time. And so there was a few days where I actually tried to get into the office and my car just wouldn't make it. So I had to work from home, which thank goodness technology was all set up and I had my laptop and everything all set up so that I could do that. So it was an option. So rather than having a day off or 3 days off, I worked from home. And I think having the experience of it, I realized I'm not as isolated as I thought I probably would be.
Yeah.
And that it is easy to get hold of people on Teams and people are still there to help you. So I think it was more of a confidence thing.
Yeah, I think that completely makes sense. And in a way, you have to prove yourself first in person
Yeah.
before having that option to work off site. And that's better for everybody, isn't it? They can trust you and you can
Yeah.
have that confidence in yourself.
I do think that's a big thing. Is I know that it can be quite a contentious issue. Like I've had other workplaces where it's a bit frowned upon to work from home, even though it's offered.
Yes.
And I think it does come down to mutual trust. Because to be honest, you could switch your TV on if you wanted, or if you're
Yeah.
working from home. So I think it depends mainly on who you are as an employee and if you are quite self motivated and self driven. So I think once that mutual trust has been built, I think it's a really good starting point to then offer work from home.
Yeah, absolutely. Prove yourself in the role
Yeah.
and develop good practices as well, good habits. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. It might be a bit of a weird thing to say on a podcast, but just like you, I don't appreciate having an audience when I'm on the phone either,
Yeah.
believe it or not. And as you know, I only share my office with Tim, but even in front of him, sometimes I don't want to make a phone call because
That's pressure enough.
it's odd, isn't it? I think I don't want anybody to listen to this side of the conversation and judge me. And I think
Yeah.
it's about confidence, but
Mm.
certainly making a call from home without that audience, without that pressure,
Mm.
it is definitely an easier task. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. What are some of the other benefits that you've got from working a hybrid schedule?
I think a lot of flexibility and having to take less time off has been a big thing as well. There's a few work events where I've been sent down to London to go to a meeting or a conference, which obviously is all on work time. But if I didn't have the option to work remotely, I would just have to take a lot of the day traveling and getting checked in and all that for 2 hours in a conference. Whereas when I have the option to hybrid work, I can do work on the train to and from London. I get more done. Like I say, with bad weather, you don't have to call in. You can just get more done. I think it also creates like company loyalty. I definitely think that there's a lot of people that maybe wouldn't have come back after maternity leave or after a health problem if they didn't have that option. And in my previous role, I definitely saw it gave, the CEO access to a lot of talent. When you have remote working, our head of brand management, she's really qualified, but she worked 3 hours away. So there was no way she was going to drive 6 hours every day to and from the office. So I think that's another big perk for the employers as well.
That is such a great point because there's a lot of debate about remote work and
Mm,
if it's really beneficial for a company to have many people off site. But I think that's really
mm,
interesting that you said that actually it promotes loyalty.
yeah.
Some would argue that a team can't really gel and that everybody is isolated and perhaps working in their own bubble.
Mm,
But like you say, if a company is prioritizing the welfare of their staff and giving them that opportunity to work from home, that loyalty is there in a different way. It's not about physical proximity. So I really like that point, Melissa. Really great. And then, yeah, the flexibility of traveling and the fact that you get used to working on the go and maintain
mm,
high standards even if you are on the go. We've recently just booked a trip, and instead of flying direct to the destination, we're going to do a stop off for a few reasons. But actually, I'm kind of looking forward to that stop off because I'm going to work a few hours.
Yeah.
But you can get more out of your time if you're used to working on the go and if
Mm,
you have that set up. Whereas
yeah.
in the past, that just would have been a day lost or half a day lost because
Yeah.
of traveling. So
I think as
definitely.
well, when you're working on a project, I've had a few instances where my laptop's just at home, and this is maybe not great, but at 7 o'clock at night, an idea will hit me, and I'm like, I'll just go add it on now. And so I actually feel like I put more hours in or more high quality work as such when I have that option.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to be working 24/7, obviously, but there are moments that those ideas do arrive for sure, and that you can get them down when they're still fresh.
Yeah,
Sometimes I have days where I travel and I'll just put in the Slack chat, traveling for the next couple of hours, we'll check in later tonight. And that
yeah,
way you haven't lost the day. You still are
mm,
offering a certain presence during that day. And
yeah,
whoever you're working with can be confident that nothing's going to be left and that things aren't delayed simply because you're traveling. Like you say, it's
yeah,
something to check in the evening. And it doesn't have to go on all night, just a half an hour or so. Check in,
yeah.
tick off the task, and then enjoy the rest of your evening. Any other positive points, or do you think we've exhausted them all?
I would actually say this probably sounds a bit counterintuitive, but I think there's less distractions working from home.
Mm,
I think a lot of times some managers that I've spoken to in meetings have raised concerns over, at home there's far more things going off, but I actually think it's, I'm a chatter, as you can tell.
okay.
So I will have chats with my colleagues when getting coffee and things. And I think actually sometimes it is easier to focus and get in like high quality work when working at home as well, which was something I didn't expect. I thought it'd have to be, I think you do have to be disciplined, but I thought it would have to be very sort of constantly thinking about, right, okay, focus, focus. But actually, it is sometimes easier at home.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got more control over our environment, haven't we? So
Mm,
if that discipline is there and you are motivated to do a good job and maintain a
mm,
high quality of work, you will make sure that the environment is distraction free.
yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, great. So loads of positive points that we both enjoy in our current schedules. What would you say are some of the drawbacks or challenges of working remotely?
I would say isolation. There's lots of meetings that are put in per week, a good like two or three with your team and then with the wider team. So you do still feel linked in. But in previous roles, we've worked hybrid. Sometimes you can go a week or two without really speaking to anyone else, especially in a startup where there's only about 6 people and you're each in charge of completely different points. You don't really collaborate that much. So sometimes it can be a bit, you feel like you haven't seen the outside world for a little bit,
Yeah,
which is why I appreciate the hybrid working for me personally now, is because there is at least that touch point 2 or 3 times a week, which is
yeah.
really useful.
Yeah, like you say, the company or we ourselves as individuals have to be proactive to make
Mm,
sure that we maintain that connection, don't we? But I think it's
yeah,
interesting though, because cast your mind back, well, it's probably when you were very young, but there was a time that there was no remote working at all,
yeah,
and people still felt lonely at work. People still weren't
yeah,
necessarily making meaningful or encouraging connections with their colleagues. So, in person or remotely, that effort needs to be made, and it's good that where you are now is making that proactive effort to bring people together and make sure that nobody's isolated. But I think in this world, it is an ongoing problem anyway, isn't it? Isolation, loneliness. Yeah, and so the company and we as individuals have to make that effort. Any other drawbacks?
probably that you do. I do think you do have to be quite a motivated person to work from home. You have to be very organized because you can let jobs drag a little bit that maybe you wouldn't in the office, or they can take up more time than when you're in the office. Maybe I noticed that for the first week and thought I need to get a proper schedule in and set alarms and things when I need to get certain things sorted. That's
Mm.
just for my personality. I thought it'd be good to kind of time block things,
Yeah,
because it can be easy to sort of, not even anything extreme like watching TV when you shouldn't be, but it's easy to sort of disengage a little bit or be a bit out of it. So I think it's good to have that structure, I think, when you're working from home. And the only other drawback I could think of is, for me, I love having like my one-to-ones and catching up with the team. If it's anything that's a bit more personal, I don't think you can replace that with remote sometimes. Sometimes it is just really good to to see people in person or training sessions, done quite a lot of training with people. It's very difficult to do over Teams, especially if there is a technical issue, which there always is somewhere. It's a lot easier just to be able to walk over and see what's happening, or to check someone's work on the spot rather than waiting for it to be uploaded. I think there are certain things, creative collaborations as well. In my previous work, we were doing a lot of promotional material, so making like banners and things. So I needed input from all six of them. And it's when you're doing something creative, I think there's always a space for that to be in person.
Yeah, I think it's about that balance, isn't it? I live in a different country to all of my clients at the moment, but there is something nice, even just sometimes when I'm in the same country as my clients, to be able to meet them and make
Yeah,
that bond and perhaps discuss certain points that wouldn't be as easy to discuss from a distance. So
yeah.
in-person interaction, yeah, certainly is very important. And
Mm.
it's a way of trying to get that balance. Any other challenges?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a major challenge, but something I found is that when you work from home, you lean on your colleagues less, not intentionally, but just if you're chatting with someone while you're getting a coffee and you go, oh, this system's driving me mad today because this has happened. They'll go, oh, I know a fix for that. I'll come over and help you. Whereas you're not going to team someone and say the system's driving me mad today, because it would be a bit left field. So I think just the natural conversation that you have when you're in person can sometimes lead to really good results, like whether that's collaboration or people that know tricks that you don't know. And that's something that I found that I've thought to myself, oh, I'll ask someone when I'm next in the office, but I
Hmm.
wouldn't necessarily do it over a meeting or over an email.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. So you're putting off sometimes that
Yeah,
communication for when you're actually in the same space, because I
yeah,
guess, yeah, in a way, it's almost informal, isn't it? It's something that's going to be short and dealt with quickly, and it sometimes can seem that it's not worth doing online. Yeah, I can
yeah.
understand. Excellent. And yeah, just to go back on what you said about breaks as well, and how
Mm,
important it is to be disciplined and motivated. I guess the point is that when you're in an office, your options for a break are pretty limited. It
yeah.
could be walk around the block, go for a cup of tea.
Mm,
Whereas when you're at home, you have so many more options for what you could do in your break.
yeah.
Your whole entertainment system potentially, and your local area and your favorite spots to visit. So that discipline is so important to not
Mm,
end up on a path of perhaps leaving work behind altogether and not getting the most out of your day. So yeah,
mm,
good point about breaks. Fantastic. So, Melissa, you've been working for a while with a few different colleagues,
mm.
remotely and in person. What would you say are the character traits that make it easy to work with somebody when working remotely?
I would say definitely that they're engaging. If you're over if you're doing a meeting together and it's just based around a PowerPoint slides, it could be a bit, they're all in black and white. And if you just, you're just talking to each other, it's very easy to unintentionally sort of kind of switch off a little bit. Whereas when you're in the office in person, it's very difficult to switch off if you're sat across from that person. So
Yeah,
I think being engaging, being excited about the things you're talking about, just to keep everybody going when you're online, that's always a massive perk for me. I think the biggest thing has just been like consistent communication, even when it seems like it doesn't matter. So you don't just have to communicate on, we're doing a project together, so I'll do A, you do B. I think it's just keeping people in the loop. So a lot of my colleagues will message me and say, I'm done with the money for today, but now I'm going to go on to work list. I don't need to know that information, but it
mm,
just creates that check-in where you just are conscious that everyone's around, everyone's online if you need anything. And I think as well, it just keeps everybody on top of where they are. No one duplicates work, because when you're
yeah,
at home, it's very easy to think, oh, I'll just nip and do that, and someone else has already done it. So even if you think it's not important, just keeping that communication open is a massive one.
absolutely. Yeah. Over communication is better than under
Always.
communication in some ways. Yeah. I fell into
Yeah.
that trap even yesterday, and it was something seemingly stupid, but I think when you're working remotely, you have to reassure each other. Silly
Yeah.
thing, but one of my clients sent me a document that I needed to deal with, and I just got on with it, sent it on Slack. And then about 2 hours later, she sent me a follow-up message saying, "Did you get that?"
Good. And
Mm,
that would have been avoided if I'd simply just done a thumbs up on each
yeah,
of those documents that she'd sent, and I thought, oh, that was silly of me. I should have made sure of that. So, yeah, that
yeah,
communication to reassure, to
mm,
avoid duplication as well
yeah,
of work, because, yeah, the possibility is that somebody can think that you're not dealing with something because you've not acknowledged receipt and then passes it on to somebody else. And then two of
yeah,
you are working on the same thing. So I think that is a really important point that you've made there, Melissa. Yeah, absolutely. And enthusiasm, so important. You have to project all that more through a screen. There's no
yeah.
getting away from it. You have to stay engaging. I mean, question, because obviously you've got experience of working with the same people remotely and in person. Do you
Yeah.
feel a different kind of vibe with the same person? Have you noticed that, or even get a different impression of the same person, depending on if it's remote or in person?
Not me personally, but sometimes when we're on a call and there's someone that's not normally in our meetings, I'll bump into them in the office and they might go, "Well, you seemed a bit annoyed on that meeting," or she seemed a bit withdrawn on that meeting. And because I know these people in person, you go, "Oh no, that's just how she
Yeah,
looks when she's listening." But it's and I'm the same. But I think one thing that maybe people don't necessarily think of when working from home is that you do have to have the emotional intelligence to decide when it's best to, actually get on a Teams call, even if you're working remotely, rather than an email. Because sometimes things come across, especially if you're doing some sort of not criticism, but constructive feedback on something that's not gone right. You can't get someone's tone of voice or facial expressions over an email. So it's kind of thinking, okay, for this, I will give them a call and ring
yeah,
them. So sometimes the emotion can get lost on remote working. But yeah, I think because I do know them in person, I don't see a massive difference. But
yeah,
that's because I have the context behind the scenes, but other people might not and
yeah.
can get the wrong end of things sometimes.
It's true. It's easy to make a judgment, and we're all guilty of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, and it might just be that they feel a bit awkward being on camera, or
Yeah.
their chair isn't very comfortable, or there's noise coming from the neighbours next door, and they're feeling a bit frustrated about it. It could be all
Yeah.
kinds of reasons why somebody looks a bit miserable. But if you
Mm,
don't know them, if you haven't made those connections, or indeed met in person, it's easy to make a judgment that, okay, that
yeah.
person's miserable, which is a shame. So since going from working 100% in person to now working hybrid, can you see in yourself some of the skills that you've developed to become a more effective remote worker?
Yeah. I think the communication's been a massive one of just keeping people in the
Mhm.
loop of what I'm doing. I never used to do that when I was in the office full time because people could see me around the office and didn't really need to know. And I actually think that that would have been helpful when I was in person because other people can see you around the office. They don't necessarily know what you're doing and what
Yeah,
projects you're working on. I think my confidence, it's made me become more self-reliant. When you're at home, especially if you're on the phone with someone, you have to figure it out then and there. You can't look around for someone in the office.
Mm.
So that's made me feel a lot more confident in my abilities, and then I've taken on more projects at work and additional tasks to help out because I feel that I can. I feel like I've got the skill set now. I can crack on with it, and I know if something goes wrong, how to deal with it, or if I get stuck, where to go. And I think if I hadn't been pushed into that with hybrid working, that probably wouldn't have happened. And you can stay quite comfortable.
Yeah, I've certainly had a similar experience as well from being in the office, not having that experience, not having that confidence, and just remaining in my bubble until somebody needed something from me. And
Yeah,
like you say, that remote working, you have to become independent. You have to build your confidence. You have to get used to, like you say, being enthusiastic and projecting your personality from afar. And I
yeah,
think that's really great that you feel now that, Melissa, that when you're in the office, these are skills that you're taking back with you to be a more dynamic, effective member of the team. And I certainly feel the same. I look back on my times when I was in the office early in my career, and yeah, I'm a different person. And largely, I think it is thanks to having that time away to be independent and build my confidence. Yeah. So it's a balancing act as usual, because we talked earlier about the danger of becoming too independent. So if, you have an independent personality in the first place, remote working could pose a danger in the fact that you lose sight of the need of others. But
mm,
nonetheless, building that independence can certainly be helpful when you bring it back in to a group working scenario where you really do have something to offer to build others up as well. Do you have any anonymous examples of when some of those key skills have been absent and it's made remote working difficult for you?
Yeah, I think I've had a few situations where I've tried to get hold of people, and because maybe they've not set their team status to busy or
Mm.
away or whatnot, or you don't know when people have decided to take their breaks and things, you can feel a bit on your own, which can break down the team spirit as such. I've had a few situations where certain things were missed, but because you can't catch up with people in person, or maybe you don't want to come across as rude sometimes, certain emails don't get sent. And then when you eventually do have the random day in the office, you realize quite a few things have fallen through the cracks,
Right.
which is why I quite like the hybrid model, because it will only ever be 3 days maximum before you can get together and go, right, where are we all?
Mm.
Because everyone's got different communication styles, and you can't expect everyone to update you on every tiny thing, and nor should they. But it's just, I think it's good to have that moderation.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think when the communication breaks down even slightly, the whole project can get put at risk.
Yeah, so, so important. And never presuming, because what
Mm.
that experience I told you about yesterday, that's a document that I'm sent weekly and on a Thursday, and
Mm.
I've received it weekly for the last 2 years. So in my head, I was like, well, of course she knows I've got it. And of course she
Yeah.
knows I'm working on it, just like I have every week for the past 2 years. But you can never presume. That's not a good practice when people are counting on you for information, for
Yeah.
updates. Yeah. So your hybrid schedule means that if some things have been left, you can get in
Mm.
there in person and catch things up.
Yeah.
Okay, really interesting points, Melissa. Thank you. So, as you know, this is the Remotely Interested podcast about remote working, work life in general, and top tips to successfully work from anywhere. We've had loads of tips from you already, Melissa, so thank you. So now we're going to learn potentially a bit more about you or your views of work or your aspirations with the Mosaic Gold plate question. Randomly selected, of course. So here we go. What is it going to be today? Oh, okay. So, Melissa, what stationary item or software could you not live without and why?
I'm so tempted to say all of them. It's so
Really?
used to my little setup. I would say randomly a keyboard. My laptop does have a keyboard on it, but I just find I'm quicker with it. I'm a lot quicker on a keyboard. Everything's easier for me, especially because I am dyslexic as well, so that's a big one. But yeah, every time I don't have it, I just seem to be slowed down, or I'm like kind of squinting at my keyboard on my laptop trying to find out where everything is. So that's a really random basic one. But yeah, and then second to that, probably my monitor, because we have about 8 different systems that we work from at one
Oh,
time. So if we're looking into one policy, you have to have at least 8 different windows open. It depends how complicated it is. Because when you work with pensions, you're working with systems that were made in the 80s and things. So you've got to do quite a bit of coding just to look up
okay.
people's names and things. So having an additional monitor is pretty great as well when working from home. So you don't have everything all on one tiny screen.
Yeah, absolutely. No, hey, you say it's basic, it's not basic because it's easy to presume, oh, the laptop's enough. There's a screen,
Yeah.
there's a keyboard, but it's not the same as,
No.
I don't know, it's the ergonomics, is that right?
Yeah.
It's not the exact same feel. And I worked with just my laptop monitor until only about 3 years ago. I can't believe it now. But how important it is to be able to see things and arrange things on more than one screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
completely.
think as well, because I have a monitor, I can't move around my house. It's sat at a desk, so it forces me into that structure when I'm at home as well. I
Yeah,
can't just go and take my laptop and type on the sofa for a bit. It's a case of no, I'm sat at my office, so it kind of keeps you, you know, glued into one place, which is nice as well.
yeah, exactly. As you said, setup is really important, and
Mm.
staying within that kind of professional zone of the setup that's already in place is important. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you depart from that, though, for example, you talked about traveling for a meeting, traveling down to London for the day,
Yeah.
you still manage to work from your laptop.
Yeah.
but you find it more difficult.
Yeah, I think I still get the work done. I just think I'm a bit slower because there's so many different things to go through on one laptop. And then sometimes, because there's quite a lot of applications open, the battery doesn't last that long. So you've got to make sure you're on a
Yeah.
train seat that's near a plug socket or whatnot. And then sometimes tech issues as well, if you
Yeah.
don't always have Wi-Fi on a train. So I have hotspotted to my phone a few times. So it is possible, but I just don't think it's the most optimal way of working.
Absolutely. And I agree. There are different types of remote work, different things that you're able to do in different contexts. And so, like we said before, fantastic that we can be flexible and dip in and out of work at times where otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do if remote working wasn't set up. But yeah, optimal, focused work has to be done with an absolutely brilliant setup. And that's the way it is. And that's not a bad thing. It just shows the
Mm-hmm.
importance of making sure that the setup is right and that you can get the best out of the time that you are with the optimal setup to do that really high quality work. So yeah, I'm similar. I love my
Yeah.
laptop, but I love my home office setup as well. So yeah.
Do you think as well it helps you when you have your home office to switch off a little bit? Because I think sometimes when you work at home, you can't switch off from work sometimes because it's all the same space. So for me, I found that having a little room with a setup, once I'm away from that desk, I can switch off a little bit more and relax at home time. I don't know if you feel
Yes.
the same with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, designated spaces. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Because then the designated space for work can be closed and forgotten about, for
Yeah.
sure. Because I have noticed that sometimes if we're traveling and perhaps I'm working in a hotel room, it's easy to actually be working in that hotel room most of the time
Yeah.
because there's no separation, like you say. So yeah,
Mm.
Melissa, absolutely. Having that home office set up, that it's not a drawback. Some people might think it's a drawback to having a
Mm.
workspace at home, but actually it's a more efficient way of making that separation between home life and work life because it's clearly established. So thanks, Melissa. This has been a really great chat.
Thanks
Uh,
for having me.
no, it's been really good. So, what advice would you give to anybody that might like to follow in your footsteps?
I would say just go for it. I think there's a lot of times where I've seen jobs and thought maybe I wasn't qualified enough for them or that I wouldn't be the right fit for them. But actually, just having the confidence to just put my foot in the door and go for it was the biggest thing. And then learning that your confidence isn't something that you're just born with or not born with, it's something that you build through action. That
Yeah.
a lot of the situations I've been put in where I was extremely nervous, or the first time I got asked to do public speaking or travel on my own to meet clients in London, it was really overwhelming. I thought, I'm going to mess this up. But I think that once you get through that anxiety and panic, that on the other side, you've then built the competence to have the confidence for next time. And yeah, just the discipline and self motivation of going after what you want, but also accepting the hard work that comes with it. And going back to what I said before about almost having to prove yourself to then get the privilege of hybrid working. I think if you create good systems, then kind of sets you up for any job if it's remote or in person. If you have a good system and a good schedule that you set out and really work on communication and collaborating with people in whatever way they would prefer, I think it takes you far in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great advice, Melissa. I really love that. And it's true, nobody is born with these skills. They're skills that have to be developed. Confidence itself is a skill. And so
Mm.
having a setup, having a structure of working that enables you to flourish, be it at home or in the office or a bit of both, can really get you to that point. And the anxiety that's there at the beginning will be reduced in time. It is
Yeah.
possible to become more confident and competent, like you say. So I really love that. Yeah, don't be afraid to go for it and step out of your comfort zone in order to progress. Yeah, so excellent. Certainly been my path. I can see it's yours as well. So that's fantastic. Thanks so much, Melissa. Well, I've really enjoyed today.
Yeah,
Um,
me as well.
yeah, hopefully see you soon. Take good care of yourself and bye bye for now.
See you later.
Bye.
So we saw allowing employees to work from home part of the week helps reduce unnecessary travel time, accommodates personal circumstances, and can improve focus by minimising in-office distractions. It also encourages loyalty and widens the talent pool for employers. Also, successful remote working relies on building mutual trust, having clear systems and schedules, and maintaining frequent proactive communication to avoid isolation, prevent duplicated work, and keep collaboration flowing. And finally, starting in office builds competence and trust, which then enables effective hybrid work. Over time, remote work can strengthen self-reliance, problem-solving skills, and the ability to work efficiently across different setups, while also reinforcing the importance of balancing in-person interactions for creative and relationship-building tasks.
So, if you're even remotely interested in remote working, I'll see you next time.